good.
All right, Max, thank you for joining us. We have Max Ramsey with us. He's associate broker and chief operating officer of Mock Ranches. You guys operate on a whole nother level. So it's really cool, but we're more so today, what we wanted to hear is, and I think what other aspiring agents want to hear is, where did this all begin for you? How did you get connected in KC or Mock Ranches? And then how did we get to this point? Because you guys have had a lot of success, specifically yourself and your team. I want to hear where it all started.
First off, thanks for having me on. Enjoy being here. I kind of had an untraditional path here. So I didn't grow up in, let's say, in the ranching community. I grew up in a rodeo community. My parents didn't have a background with horses or cows. And then I didn't have this dream of being a ranch realtor when I was a kid. When I was a young age, I got into rodeo. We moved from Dallas to the hill country and got connected with some friends who all rodeoed. And so I get into FFA, 4-H, stuff like that. And that's kind of where my journey began with Casey. A long time ago, Casey was my county extension agent when I was just a kid. So fast forward 15 years, I didn't know that our paths would cross again. But when I was in college, I was getting an economics degree from Tarleton State University, just graduated actually. I was trying to rodeo for a living, quote unquote, with a lot of help from my parents. Tough way to make a living. There's not a way to make a living, especially for me. I was doing some metal building work and I was just kind of doing whatever I could to rope and do that line or that trajectory. And I remember I don't want to say I was driving to class, but I remember I was on Facebook. I might have been sitting in class. I'd just started my MBA because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Got an economics degree because it was easy when I was rodeoing. And Casey had posted a ranch for sale. And I was like, wow, that's cool. How do I do that? That looks like a fun living. I don't want to be stuck in an office every day. And I direct messaged him and just said, that's cool what you do. You know, I want to do that. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but he probably just chuckled and laughed and said, who's this kid? Right. But from our previous connection, he said, let's jump on a call. Let's talk. And I don't remember how long the period, it wasn't a very long period. Let's say within a month, Casey and I jumped on a call. He started asking me like, well, what are your goals when you graduate? What are your goals in life? What do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. You know, whatever's more. I want to rope. I want to rodeo. I want to make money. I don't know how those combine or how I do that. That's what I want to do. And he said, well, let me help you out a little bit. Let's set a weekly or monthly. We're just going to jump on the phone for an hour. I'm going to send you what's called a 4-on-1. It's a KW sheet and talks about goals and priorities and strategy. And let's go over it every month. So I remember the first time he sent it to me, I looked at it and I'd always been pretty goal oriented. But I didn't know like how to write out a goal. I was just like, okay, I want to be a better team roper, or I want to be a better hunter, or I want to graduate, you know, stuff like that. And he taught me how to actually strategize, plan goals, how to create the activities to get to those goals, how to hold itself accountable, things like that. Then he also challenged me to think bigger. He said, you know, I want you to think, where do you want to be in 10 years, 20 years? What do you want your life to look like? From there, I went down a rabbit hole. Started reading books that he was recommending me, started listening to podcasts he recommended me. One of them was the Gary Vee, his podcast. And that kind of snowballed. A couple months later, I said, well, you know, how do I continue this progression? So, well, you got to get your real estate license first. So I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, probably should do that. So when I was in grad school, I went ahead and knocked out my real estate license too. And I want to say it was 3/4 of the way through grad school, about halfway through 3/4 of the way. I was pretty fed up with it, but I started it, so I wanted to finish it. But I was really intrigued with the real estate. I really got to talking to Casey about what he was doing. We talked about his vision a lot. I drove to Austin because his office was in Austin at the time, and met with him multiple times. I was able to go on a ranch tour with him and see what he did. And I said, okay, this is what I want to do. And on the side, I was still roping. I was still doing that stuff. And I knew that if I wanted to really succeed in this business, I had to dive in.
You had to go all in.
I had to go all in because what you focus on expands. So I told you this story earlier. I was in Hermiston, Oregon. I was driving and rodeoing for one of the top guys in the world. I was actually living at his house at the time. And I remember looking around and saying, okay, this is not what I want to do. This is not the life I want to live. Nothing wrong with it, but I have big goals, big aspirations. And I had someone that was pushing me to have better clarity on what that looked like. My parents helped me get home because I had to get a plane flight and I didn't have any money.
They sent you the money.
They sent me the money. I flew home. And from that day forward, I had a completely different outlook on where I was going, my trajectory. I got back. I remember I almost immediately sold one of my horses, ended up selling all my horses and sold my trailer. I sold everything. And as this was going on is about the time that I said, okay, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to work for Casey. I don't know what it looks like yet. He probably doesn't know what it looks like yet. And I'm going to finish my degree. I'm going to start working for him. So I want to say I was almost finished with my degree. And I called Casey, said, Mr. Mock, this is Max Ramsey. I really appreciate everything done for me. I want to work for you. Well, Max, I appreciate that, but I don't have any room for you. Just hired a guy. At the time, he had 2 agents. He had an assistant. He's like, I can't pay you, can't hire you. I'm happy to help you with your goals, but it's pretty much all I can do. I said, no, you don't understand. I'm gonna work for you. I don't know what it looks like yet, but I'm gonna work for you. And I really made it a non-negotiable for him. It's straight from Gary V. If you want to do it bad enough, you'll do it for free. And I knew at that time to be able to gain the knowledge to leapfrog to where I wanted to be, this is what I had to do.
And that's what you told Casey.
Yeah.
You said, no, I'll work for you for free.
Yep. I told him I'd work for him for free, and he didn't know what to say at that point. He said, I'm not going to let you work for free. We'll figure out something. So as soon as he said that, I knew it was game on. At the time I was living in Stephenville, Texas. Casey was living near Austin. I got my license and I said, let me show stuff for you. I was driving, I think I put 60,000 miles on my first truck at the time, because any opportunity I had to meet with him, to show a property for him, and that was just reps under my belt.
Yeah.
Right. Because as a new agent, it's really hard to get that momentum getting started. They don't teach you that in real estate school.
Yeah, well, the crazy thing is like what people don't understand is you just mentioned something, the reps is, there's the old 10,000 hour rule plus or minus, right? Well, if you do that, that's 2,000 hours a year is a normal work year. And then if you do that for 5 years, you're at 10,000. But entrepreneurs don't have that much time. We don't have a 5-year runway. We got to make it work now. And so you jumping out there that's one thing. And so that's 60,000 miles on that truck, and that truck's the value plummeting as a result of 60,000 miles in a year. That was your investment. That's the investment that you had available to make. So that's one thing for those that are listening, what it takes to be successful. And then the second thing was like, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable because of the uncertainty. You said, hey, I'm not going to get paid. I just want the reps, right? I want to go to practice every day. I want to meet you in the cage. I want to hit. I want to take ground balls. I want to strengthen my physically. All those things as an athlete would go do and not get compensated because they're trying to get an outcome. You took that approach to your career. That's what's fun, and that's what people want to hear about, and it's inspiring. So I think talking a little bit about being comfortable, being uncomfortable is something like I would like hear you expand on, because in the mind of a 20-something-year-old, you don't know if you're right, wrong. You got your dad to talk to or something like that, maybe your uncle or whatnot. And then you got Casey, who he'll say it, people poured into him. I mean, one of the best real estate people on the planet, and Gary Keller, directly pulled into him, and now it's just trickling down the line. And so now you've taken advantage of that opportunity, but you can't do it with someone that's not willing to put in the work,
Mm-hmm. I'm shocked that Casey didn't get sick of me, to be honest with you, because as soon as he said yes, I knew it was game on. I did finish my master's degree, so I got an MBA from Tarleton. And as soon as I got my degree, I was dating Trisha at the time, my wife. We put the house up for sale. I owned a house up there. I had it through Gary V, through talking to Casey. I was able to invest in a house. I had roommates that were paying my mortgage. It was the start to the path that you want to be on. I looked at Trisha. I said, we're gonna make a move. You could say it degress, but in my opinion, it was an investment in ourselves. We sold the house. We moved into my parents' guest house. At the time, Trisha didn't have a job. She was applying for jobs. I didn't have a job, so to speak. I was a quote unquote showing assistant for Casey.
You're straight commission.
But like you said, being uncomfortable. So I knew where I wanted to be, what I had to do. And so I really worked to get clarity on that. And part of that was being uncomfortable. So I was showing up at Casey's house almost every day. I was surrounding myself with these people that were in the business, the people on the team. And, as a new agent, newly licensed, you don't really get the opportunity to show these multi-million-dollar ranches. Casey gave me that privilege and that opportunity to go show these ranches for him. So it was an uncomfortable thing first because I'm a brand new guy, but I got to learn. I got to press fast forward button really, and got to learn from Casey, from these guys I was sitting around. And then also the room of people that I was able to get in the door to, because Casey surrounded himself with very productive, successful people. I was able to get in those rooms too. So I was able to get all this knowledge from all these people. And so looking back, I can kind of remember my parents saying, "Did you make any money? Are you sure you want to do this?" You have a degree, you have an MBA, you go get a good job." And I said, "No, this is it. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm either going to succeed or I'm gonna fail trying."
Fail miserably trying.
And I'm such a believer in the doubling down and the whole mindset aspect of things. Like I said earlier, what you focus on expands. So I was so laser focused on being successful that I knew that it might not be today, it might not be next week, but time on task over time, I'm gonna get to where I want to go.
Compounding.
Yeah, the compounding interest.
Compounding interest, compounding effort. And I also think, and I think you've got this mindset, whether you've verbalized it or not, just knowing you to this point, is that when you make a decision, you don't know if it's the right decision or the wrong decision. And it really doesn't matter. You make it the right decision. You know, I'm going to pour into this, or I'm going to pour into my marriage, or I'm going to pour into my kids, or I'm going to pour into this ranch that's anybody else would like not want to touch it. You know, and I'm going to go redevelop it and I'm going to go improve my career. And it's going to take a daily concerted effort. That's admirable too, because as another entrepreneur, one to the other, you've gone from where you are and told your story now. And now you're operating a brokerage of a bunch of very talented folks. You were trying to recruit other people just like you when you were in your 20s. You know what that looks like and you made it the right decision.
Yeah. My wife kind of gets on to me sometimes about it. I have a pretty obsessive personality. And I also don't, you have to have an obsessive personality, but you also you never can be the victim. Especially, I could look up and say, oh, the market's this, the market's that. It's a bad time to get your real estate license. It's a placeholder, right? And I knew that you have to have a strong mindset. And that's why I read a lot, listen to a lot of podcasts, because the mental aspect of it, and then being able to put that forward into just the work ethic, time on task over time. And then the discipline of doing it and just saying, okay, I believe that this will happen and I'm going to do everything in my power to get there. And this is what I'm going to focus on. And if I focus on the activities, I'm going to get to the end result that I want.
Well, I think like even raising young boys to go out into the world and do their thing and be good stewards and good husbands and all that stuff. I tell my boys like, and they're in their early 20s, you know, it's really hard and it's no fun to lose.
No.
Right? It's really difficult to be mediocre and it's not fun. It doesn't build confidence and esteem, self-esteem and all this other stuff. And it's really hard to win. So of the three options in life that you have at whatever you set your mind to doing or put your hands to, why not try to win? Because that's hard too. And they're all hard.
You have to choose your hard.
Yes.
It's hard. It's hard to win, but it can also be really hard if you're average, trying to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what's next.
Yeah.
So you get to choose your hard.
So which one do you pick? So anyway, this has been a great message. I think this is inspiring to the young and up and coming guys that are sitting in college right now or gals sitting in college right now saying, you know, I love this rural lifestyle. And it's easy to see this land broker's life on Instagram because that's not reality. What they do on a day-to-day basis and the hours that they put in. A friend of mine, I heard it on a podcast recently, is some billionaire got asked, like, you know, how many hours a week do you work? And he said, all of them, you know, and that's the reality is like what we're doing. It is our life's work. We love helping other people make money. You love helping other people make investments and decisions on investments and what the outcome could potentially look like. And so that's a really cool position to be in because if you're doing that, if you're helping somebody else make money or you're helping them fulfill an investment that's going to then turn out to make money, they're going to be a customer for a really long time. And you guys have been doing that.
Yeah, if you're just in it for the money, it's short term. That's what I'm very passionate about, helping people grow. And that's why my journey through the Mock Ranches company, it started as a showing assistant, then it turned into a buyer's agent. Then I started getting listings, turning into a listing agent. Then during COVID in 2020, Casey approached me and said, okay, we have 4 guys on the team. This is our time to really not just take big steps, but take massive steps in the company. And he said, you want to put your MBA to work? I want you to come in as operations and let's grow this team. And through that, it went from 4 agents to now we have around 20. We have a whole support staff now. And I get to talk to almost every agent every single day and watching them grow and helping them grow and pouring into them, just like Casey poured into me. I get to do that with agents on the team and with clients and watch them do it with clients because a rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I've been very fortunate to have that position. Well, and keep your foot on the gas.
Yeah, executing a growth strategy in this space, very competitive. There's a lot of them out there, and there's been a lot of up and downs since '08, you know, and you guys to execute on that growth strategy is impressive and fun to watch. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, Max, thanks for joining us on this podcast. It's been great to hear your story, and I think you're going to inspire a lot of people that you're never going to meet. So thanks for hopping on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.